No? Well, I can say they're very helpful. Very, very helpful in long walks like I just did. And I thought I brought them to kind of illustrate, be a little object lesson for us on helps that we can find on a long journey. It is really good to be back here on a Sunday again. It's good to be celebrating graduations and watching hockey games. Nathan, you forgot to mention that you're looking forward to celebrating the Stanley Cup in Edmonton. No? And it's good to be worshiping in a community of friends. If you're new here or you haven't been with us for too long, I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you to F3C. And I hope that we get to know you and that you get to know us. And a little secret is that we're actually, even though we've been a church for some time, we're all still getting to know each other. We're all still getting to know God. And we gather each week so that we can support one another and to get to know God a little better. Earlier this year, I spoke on Ignatius of Loyola and spiritual discernment. And since then, I've been sharing at other churches about Ignatius and his work. And so today we're looking a little bit more, just a little bit longer at Ignatian spirituality and how it, like walking sticks, can help deepen your walk with Jesus, as it helped me on my journey. And as many of you know, I just returned from a 2-month sabbatical where I went on a pilgrimage known in Spanish as the Camino de Santiago, or the Way of St. James. Yes, it was a very long walk. 780 kilometers in 35 days. This is about an average of 25 kilometers a day. So, yeah, I got to walk a half marathon every day. But I still can't run it, so good for you, Ada, for running a half marathon. The Camino deserves a talk, a whole talk on its own. But today, I'm going to try to highlight a few things that I learned. And I'm using the psalm as signposts to where to go. So we'll be pausing throughout this sermon. And I offer you these 3 words: intention, attention, and trust. Can you repeat these words with me? Intention, attention, and trust. So we're going to start a little journey with Ignatius using Psalm 84, kind of like, Camino arrows that I saw along my walk. But I want to begin in prayer, and I'm going to read the words of the psalmist once again. I'm going to just invite you to let these words sink in. And this room, I recognize, is a little warm and a little stuffy, so feel free to get up, take a little walk. You don't have to stay seated if you don't need to. Just let these words become your prayer. How lovely is your dwelling place, Lord Almighty. My soul yearns and even faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar, Lord Almighty, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. Amen. Ignatius of Loyola was a Basque priest who lived in the 16th century and was one of the founders of the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits. If you recall, Ignatius was a soldier that got cannonballed in a battle against the French in 1521. During his year-long recovery at his family home in Loyola, God touched the spiritual eyes of Ignatius, and they began to open. He began to notice his feelings and how they shifted depending on what he was reading. And this noticing began a journey of transformation as Ignatius realized that these movements were spiritually significant and that God was using them to speak directly and personally to him. When Ignatius learned for himself that God was real and that God was speaking to him, it led him to dedicate his life to God. And he physically responded by leaving his family estate and set off to the other side of Spain. So there's Loyola, and he walked all the way to here, to the other side. His ultimate goal was to go to Jerusalem, to see where Jesus walked, lived, and served. Hey guys, you made it. But before he headed to the coast, he stopped at a monastery at Montserrat, which is, it's about, when I looked it up, it's about 600 and something kilometers. So it would have taken him a month to walk across Spain. There at Montserrat, he left behind his sword and wealthy clothes. Instead, he took up a walking stick and put on beggar's garments, symbolizing a profound shift in his identity. Ignatius was no longer a soldier, but a pilgrim for Christ. Walking with intention. A pilgrimage is a physical journey to a place of spiritual or religious significance for spiritual reasons. It's not a vacation, nor a restful retreat. Though a person may travel a long ways to see a beautiful church or a gorgeous landscape, it is their intention or purpose that makes the difference. Today marks the church-wide celebration of Passover, the seismic event of the giving of the Holy Spirit to the followers of Jesus. Do you know why there were so many Jewish people at the time of Pentecost? Like, why were they all there? It's a pilgrimage. Thank you, James. Jaden. So the Jewish people celebrates 3 pilgrimage festivals a year. And we know that Jesus often walked to Jerusalem for Passover, but there were 2 other festivals that were going on, and one of them, this one, is the festival of Shavuot, sorry. So devout Jews from all around the ancient world would travel to Jerusalem to celebrate these festivals and give offerings. And every year, That small town, Jerusalem, of about 50,000 people, we think, give or take a few thousand, would swell to over 100,000 people just from pilgrims. For the Camino de Santiago, the destination is the Cathedral of St. James, the traditional site where the body of St. James the Apostle was buried. It is now estimated that nearly 500,000 people walk to Santiago every year. Though the destination is religious, the reasons for walking the Camino vary. I found that when I talked to people and asked them why were they doing this, many of them responded by, they wanted the challenge, or they wanted an adventure, or they saw that this was a good way to meet people. And others thought, this is a great way to see Spain and to taste the food. When I started preparing for the Camino, I had to ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this crazy long walk when I could just relax in Portugal? Was it to taste the wine and food? Was it to get physically in shape? I mean, all of this actually happened. But if I had set those as my intentions, then that would make me a tourist or an adventurer or maybe even a would-be athlete. Instead, my intentions were multi-layered. One, I wanted space to do some thinking and praying about my future. Secondly, I wanted to process the grief over the loss of my brother. But fundamentally, I really wanted the time to walk with Jesus and to have Jesus walk with me. Setting my intentions early on not only formed my identity as a pilgrim, but also helped me to keep walking. And it helped me to decide how to spend my time and resources on the Camino. Do I take a taxi? Or do I just walk slower? Do I stay in a private room or do I sleep in a dorm? Do I see the sights or do I rest my feet? Do I go shopping or do I get a tattoo? Do I serve my neighbor or do I go at it alone? The same could be said about our regular, ordinary lives. Our vision of ourselves and our intention makes all the difference. Why am I studying this field? Or why am I working this job? Who or what am I following? Who or what am I serving? When was the last time you thought about your intentions for your life? Paying attention. It's curious to me that Ignatius took the road on foot even after a severe leg injury. I mean, if I was Ignatius and I had my legs taken out, I would ride a donkey. Thank you. And yet, even after completing his pilgrimage to Jerusalem, he continued to walk throughout Spain, France, and Italy, eventually traveling to Rome, all on foot. And I suspect it was his way of imitating Jesus. I mean, Have you ever noticed how much Jesus walked in the Gospels? I also wondered, though, if he discovered some spiritual gifts while walking. Sorry, I'm just going to take this down. So why walk? Well, for one thing, it slows you down, like way down. About 7 days or 10 days into the trail, I got a pretty bad head cold. So I decided that I'm going to take the bus. And I really struggled with the decision, but it was a good choice because it was 28 Ks. My friends were going to walk 28 Ks to the next town where we were staying. It took them 6.5 hours, while it cost me €3 and 30 minutes to cover the same distance. I mean, when you're walking a long trail like that, it is so easy to just hop on a train and just jump to Santiago. Like, why walk? But we didn't, because we were there to walk. We were there to journey by foot. We were there to slow down, to go the long way. And the gift of slowness affords you the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of nature, to have long and meaningful conversations. And ironically, you actually enjoy the fullness of time. Every day on the walk felt like a week. No joke. Everyone I spoke to, every day felt like a week. Each week felt like a lifetime. I would meet up with people I met in the first week, and I saw them again after 3 weeks, and it felt like, wow, years. And we marveled at how full the time felt. When you're walking, there's no need to hurry. Going slow taught us that the only person we're racing against is ourselves. Walking also brings the gift of attention. Instead of focusing on the destination and feeling that pressure of time, you can turn that gaze within. Walking creates the space to listen deeply to one's heart. Ignatius first noticed the subtle movements of his heart while lying in recovery, but I suspect that he continued this practice while walking. There would have been times where he would not see anyone or talk to anyone for, I don't know, kilometers, just maybe even days in those days. And these would have been the times where he could pay attention to the voice of God, how God might show up. I wonder in our daily lives how much we miss when we go on cruise control or autopilot. For any of you who drive, you know how to drive. You know there's that button that you press, and the car seems to drive itself. We can do that in our daily lives. And our daily lives is incredibly fast and noisy. And we're so tempted to check out, to distract ourselves. Do we ever notice when we feel sad, repulsed, or even when we're in pain? Do we pay attention to when our hearts are touched by God's tenderness and love? Are we aware of what we truly desire deep in our hearts? Do we know what we actually long for and want? Go slow. Pay attention. Living with trust. Ignatius' pilgrimage was a time when he was learning to surrender to God the control of his life. He was learning to allow himself to be led by God. When he left behind his sword and his dagger, he abandoned his mule to go on foot, and he gave away his fine clothing to a beggar. Ignatius was surrendering his security and his status, and he placed all his trust in God. After he took, all he took with him was a staff and a water gourd, water bottle. And that's it. Believing that God would provide all that was needed. When I packed for the Camino, it was an act of trust because I could only bring what I could carry. And I could only bring what I needed. So that meant no extra clothing, no extra shoes, no books, though I did bring a Kindle, no extra food. I had to trust that there was going to be enough to walk this trail. To be a pilgrim is an act of trust. Trusting in the fundamental goodness of God and his created world. Trust that God is working out the good in every circumstance of life. Trust that God will bring about the good, turning valleys of tears into places of springs. Trusting that we will find a home and a place to rest. Trusting that God would place the right people on your path at the right time. Before I had friends joining me, I was actually hesitant, really hesitant to commit to the Camino because I was afraid of the loneliness that comes from, not from walking or solitude. It was actually the loneliness that comes from being a foreigner in a strange place. Who knows that feeling? Turns out, I didn't need to worry about any of that. I've come to trust God wherever I go. He provides. And I come to trust that the people that I journeyed with and the people that I met by coincidence were the people that I was meant to be with, that I was meant to journey with. So what does that all mean for the church? Don't walk alone. Ignatius wasn't this rugged individual that walked alone all the time. I think that could be a perception after this. Because he actually received a lot of help from people. In particular, he received a lot of help from devout laywomen, some of whom were his family members. They were his sisters. And it's been studied how he would spend time at monasteries and kind of hostels, resting and receiving care. I suspect that Ignatius learned to receive the love of God through these friends who helped him along the way. In fact, they tried to force their help on him because he was so trying to be, I can only depend on God on my own. But it's been chronicled how he actually learned to receive help so that he can carry on his journey. In both ancient and modern times, the church, that's us, provided shelter for pilgrims as they journeyed along a dangerous route. Whether it is a place to be fed, or a bed to sleep in, or protection from bandits or predators, men and women of God offered help to weary and frightened travelers. These acts of hospitality can bear witness to the kindness and care of God. But nowadays, we take a lot of this for granted because we can afford more and sleep in 4-star hotels and eat at gourmet restaurants. Our ways of consuming and buying have changed the way we see the world, how we see ourselves, and how we see God. Because if we're just consuming and buying, that makes us consumers. We can purchase our well-being. We expect to be satisfied by others and by what they produce. And so, we leave reviews instead of appreciation. For example, walk down 4th Avenue in Kitsilano or 41st Street on Kerrisdale, and you'll have a plethora of cafes and restaurants to choose from. Or go into a grocery store, and you have multiple choices for chips, vegetables, and even bread. Who thought there could be so many kinds of bread? But when you're on a pilgrimage, when you're on the Camino, sometimes there are no options. There's a section on the Camino that we were walking, known for its kind of like monotony. It's flat. There's just fields of wheat. Nothing really interesting is going on. And there was a few kilometers, I'm guessing about 3 kilometers, where we had to walk through mud. Like it was like clay, sticky mud that stuck to our feet, so the going was slow. On top of that, it was cold. The wind was blowing, and we were walking against the wind. We get past the muddy section, which we weren't expecting, and we thought we would still have several kilometers to go to the next town where we can actually eat and rest. And then, out of nowhere, a building appears. And an old Italian man greeted us, welcomed us in cheerfully, and gave us a place to sit. He served some store-bought cookies, and there was hot coffee made on the stove. I never savored more butter biscuits and drip coffee. After taking a moment to rest, we left feeling warm and comforted. All of that was entirely unexpected and deeply appreciated. This was the Hermitage of St. Nicholas, which has had a long history of serving pilgrims and is a beautiful example of what mission could look like. Helping people experiencing the love and care of their Creator. A part of me wanted to do the Camino alone. This is my confession. I had this vision of entering Santiago and feeling this big rush of satisfaction and accomplishment, like, yeah, I did it. You know, I wanted to have that vision come to true. And I also wanted the freedom. Because when you're walking alone, you can decide how long you want to walk for and where to stay. But instead, I was taught that I needed people. God brought friends along, and I learned to slow down. I learned to work with them. I learned to allow them to help me, and I learned, they were to me exactly what I needed to keep going. I couldn't have done that without help. Help from the cafe owners and the hostel hosts, help from volunteers and fellow pilgrims. And I believe that the blessings of Buen Camino from complete strangers, through all of them, I experienced deep hospitality, kindness, and care. And experience God's care through them. Even these walking sticks. I didn't bring these walking sticks. They were given to me by complete strangers. I thought about it, and the opportunity came up. And I was so grateful for these. You don't understand how much I needed these on my walk. God takes care of us, but he does so through the gifts of other people. When I got to the cathedral, I was in the company of friends. I was overwhelmed with deep gratefulness. We made it, and we made it together. And coincidentally, today marks exactly 1 month since I arrived in Santiago. Ignatian spirituality teaches us to be intentional, to pay attention to what he is doing in the life of the church, and to trust in his goodness. It also teaches us that we need friends. Our church vision statement includes, we seek to extend God's love to all around us through gracious hospitality and authentic relationships. Friends, can we extend God's hospitality and care to one another and to our neighbors? Can we accept one another for who we are, with all of our differences of opinions and understanding? Can we accept people for who they are and not what we want them to be? Can we make a person feel welcomed and appreciated? I invite you, take the risk. Ask someone new out for coffee. Make extra food and give it away. Offer a drink. And if you need help knowing how to offer hospitality, we've got some great people in our church that know how to do this well. And I think I know, or you know who they are. We're all pilgrims in this life. This life is hard enough. It really is. Maybe we can be the presence of God that other people need. Maybe your neighbor can be the presence of God that you need. Let's close in prayer. My God, we long for you. It's why we gather as your church. We long for your presence, your justice, your peace, and your strength. We are hungry and thirsty for the presence of the living God, traveling in a world that is tainted by destruction and decay. May we learn from your servant, Ignatius of Loyola, who ever sought your face in all that he did, who always seemed to be journeying towards your heart. May we too share in this pilgrimage. Amen.